All right. Next, I want to talk about, you are currently in a band called A Living Room Hush, correct?
A band. I would at this point I would call it a songwriting duo.
Okay, cool.
And we sort of attempting to form a band. The more we write, the more we play with people. So yeah, I would call it a songwriting duo.
Cool. And you guys are in the process of recording an album right now. Yeah.
In fact, I will have a session today in like an hour. We are, and that's been wild. That's been wild. I've been wanting to record an album for 2 years now, so that's like, a lot of time invested into something and finally seeing it come to fruition. And we're fortunate the studio that we're working at, the sound designer we're working with is incredible, and Elena Confer, Creative Sound Studios, I'll do a little shameless plug there.
There you go. I'm all about plugs.
But yeah, it's been pretty crazy, and I think the beauty of it for me is that it lends us the opportunity to share the music with people.
Excellent.
It's really hard to gig out, especially working in the theater, because you're working in the theater and most nights you're at a gig, so it's like, when do I get to play my music? So this is an opportunity to get the music out to people, since we really haven't been able to play live.
Gotcha.
much.
And so who are you performing with? You mentioned it was a duo.
It's myself, my best friend Laura Romano, who is from Brooklyn. Well, she's not from Brooklyn, but that's where she lives now.
Okay.
So she comes back to the Valley several times a month, usually, to either write or work. And this week she came back for the first half of the week we recorded. She'll be back again next week for the final couple sessions. And also a close friend of mine, Hooker-Haring, who's playing bass, who is also playing bass in Next to Normal Civic.
Nice.
So it's all one big family.
I met him last night. He's a very interesting guy.
He is.
Has a lot to say, a lot about narratives, which I thought was pretty cool.
His thing is stories. He really feels that everyone has a story to tell, and if you're not telling the story, you either should be telling a story or get out of the way so that other people can tell their stories. And he's actually brought like a really neat vibe to the recording process, because for Laura and I, we've had these songs in our head for 2 years or so now, and after you play them 100 times, it's hard to reinvest. It's like performing as an actor. It's like you have to reinvest and become re-inspired by your own work, which is not an easy task. And so a fresh face, a fresh perspective on the music is welcomed, and he kind of put it in great terms by saying that it is a story that we have to tell. And so when we're in the studio, it's not so much about getting the perfect take. It's about getting the take that vibes the best with the track. So there may be a moment where we're not right in time, or not to say that it sounds sloppy. It doesn't sound sloppy. But for us, it was much more of a does this feel good? Does this sound cool to us? And that's really where we tried to sit, and it's been successful so far, because we haven't had that much time in the studio, and we've gotten we have about 10 tracks that we're working through, so it's going very well.
Well, I like what you said about rather than making a perfect take, one that uses vibes instead. And he was even talking about that with the performance of Next to Normal, where last night it was not something that, he said it felt loose, technically, but the vibe between the performers and the audience was so good, and it was just like a pickup and a feedback and everything like that. And I thought that was really neat, because in so much of performance, whether it's live or in your case with the album recorded, it doesn't need to be technically perfect.
No, and it shouldn't, because that's not how people play live, you know.
Yeah.
To me, the album is not, you know, it's a snapshot. It's this is our music at this moment in this time, based on the circumstances of our lives, whatever we're going through. So like, you know, the way I'm going to be in the studio today is going to be different than how I am in the studio next week, or how I was in the studio this past week. And that's a good thing, because, you know, I used to look at that and say, oh, you know, if we record like half a song and then come back and redo it, it's not going to gel. But it's not so much a matter of can I find the same performance that I gave 2 days ago. It's what's the performance in me today that's going to lend itself to the recording process as best as possible. And I think that's the difference between, you know, if an album comes out and it's well received and an album comes out that's not well received. And I think a lot of times, especially with the advent of pop music in its contemporary sense, you know, where it's a lot of digital processing and sampling and synth and what have you. In order to work with those instruments, it has to be precise. It has to be, you know, to a click and very, you know, intensely accurate. For us, we play folk music, so folk music in and of itself, the nature of folk music is to try to capture that vibe, because we're not just trying to make music, we're trying to represent a whole aspect of culture. And you know, as Ty so aptly put, you know, trying to tell the stories of whoever listens to this music. You know, it's in a way we are providing the story for them, or we are saying, you know, have you ever thought about this, or have you ever been through a breakup, or a friend falling out with a friend, or something like that. And that's, to me, that's what the music is about. It's not about, you know, making it as clean as possible. It's about capturing the story as best as possible.
Cool. And I should have asked earlier, what is the album called? Or do you
Revelation.
All have Revelations.
Revelation.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
So we thought that would be a good title, because it's our first album, and it's sort of, it kind of speaks to our approach to music, you know, and whether you want to take revelation in terms of realization or revelry. I think it's both. I think it's, you know, we want it to inspire people, but we also want it to be a good time. We want them to have fun when they listen to the music. So
Really cool. Awesome. Well, we're gonna move on to the future for you, but for those of you watching, check out Living Room Hush's first album, Revelation. There will be links posted for that as well. And
Reverb Nation and Facebook.
Reverb Nation and Facebook.
Soon to be a Kickstarter campaign as well.
Soon to be a Kickstarter campaign. Wow, lots of exciting things going on
So
here.
you gotta get this up in like 2 days.
2 days. Oh well. Fast editing.